"We don't have room for a dog," protested Papa, "and Hachiko really belongs to Dr. Ueno's relatives now that Dr. Ueno is dead. Hachiko is better off having a home than sitting in a train station." But Hachiko had other ideas. A few days later, he was back at Shibuya Station, patiently waiting, his brown eyes fixed on the entrance. Hachiko had run back to his old home, and from there to Shibuya Station. "Mama and Papa let me take food and water to Hachiko every day." Mama grumbled a bit about the food, saying we couldn't afford to feed a big bear like Hachiko, but she always seemed to cook more rice than we could eat. Other people at the station took an interest in Hachiko. Men and women who rode Papa and Dr. Ueno's train stopped by to scratch his ears and say a few kind words. One day I saw an old man filling Hachiko's water bowl as Hachiko licked his hand. The old man's hair was streaked with gray, and he was stooped as if he had spent most of his life bent over the ground, but his eyes were as sharp and bright as Hachiko's. "Are you young Kentaro?" the old man asked. I nodded. "I am Mr. Kobayashi. I was Dr. Ueno's gardener. Dr. Ueno told me that you and Hachiko often wait for the afternoon train together. Do you still take care of the house where Dr. Ueno lived?" I asked. "Yes," said Mr. Kobayashi. "Hachiko comes back to the house every night to sleep on the porch, but in the morning he walks to the station just like he did with Dr. Ueno. When the last train leaves the station, he returns home." We were both silent. Then I asked, "Do you think Hachiko knows that Dr. Ueno died?" Mr. Kobayashi said thoughtfully, "I don't know, Kentaro. Perhaps he still hopes that Dr. Ueno will return someday. Or perhaps he knows Dr. Ueno is dead, but he waits at the station to honor his master's memory." As the years passed and Hachiko got older, he became very stiff and could barely walk to Shibuya Station. But still he went every day. People began collecting money to build a statue of Hachiko at the station. Papa, Mama, and I all gave money, and we were very happy when the statue was placed next to the spot where Hachiko had waited for so many years. One chilly morning I woke to the sound of Mama crying. "What's wrong?" I asked as I stumbled into the kitchen. Papa sat silently at the table, and Mama turned her tear-stained face to me. "Hachiko died last night at Shibuya Station," she choked. "Still waiting for Dr. Ueno." I was 17 and too big to cry, but I went into the other room and did not come out for a long time. Later that day we all went to the station. To our great surprise, Hachiko's spot near the newspaper stand was covered in flowers placed there by his many friends. Old Mr. Kobayashi was there. He shuffled over to me and put a hand on my shoulder. "Hachiko didn't come back to the house last night," he said quietly. "I walked to the station and found him. I think his spirit is with Dr. Ueno's, don't you?" "Yes," I whispered. The big bronze statue of Hachiko is a very famous meeting place. Shibuya Station is enormous now, and hundreds of thousands of people travel through it every day. People always say to each other, "Let's meet at Hachiko." Today, Hachiko is a place where friends and family long separated come together again. The story behind the story. Some years ago, my family moved to Tokyo and we rented a home not far from Shibuya Station. Everyone, it seemed, knew that Hachiko's statue was the place to meet at the huge train station. No matter what time of day or night I visited Shibuya, I would always see someone standing near the large bronze dog, with eyes searching the crowd. My Japanese friends told me Hachiko's story. Hachiko was born in northern Japan in November of 1923, and a few months later he was sent to Dr. Ueno in Tokyo. When Dr. Ueno died on May 21, 1925, they had been together for just over a year. In October 1932, a newspaper reporter wrote a story about Hachiko. The headline read, "A faithful dog awaits the return of master dead for 7 years." People began traveling to Shibuya from all over Japan just to pet loyal Hachiko. Hachiko's vigil at Shibuya Station lasted almost 10 years. He died March 7, 1935. 1 year earlier, a bronze statue of Hachiko had been placed near the entrance to Shibuya Station, right next to the spot where he always waited for Dr. Ueno. There is an old photo of the real Hachiko next to the bronze one, surrounded by a crowd of people. Hachiko seems to be wondering what all the fuss is about. During World War II, the Japanese military was desperately short of metals. Many statues, including Hachiko's, were melted down. But Hachiko was not forgotten. In 1947, a few years after the war ended, the son of the original sculptor made a new statue of Hachiko. It stands there still. Every spring there is a special Hachiko festival at Shibuya Station. It is always held on April 8th, 1 month after Hachiko's death anniversary, when Tokyo's cherry trees are in full bloom. The Shibuya mayor, police chief, and station master are always there. A Shinto priest performs a ceremony, and Hachiko's friends come to admire the beautiful wreaths of flowers that are displayed around his statue. I thought Hachiko's story was lovely, both sad and wonderful, and I wanted to share it. Kentaro was invented for this story, but I am sure many children who lived near Shibuya Station knew and loved Hachiko.